Hello, my name is Renata von Tscharner. Welcome to the Charles River Conservancy Parkland show. As you know, this show always talks about the river, its parklands, and all the people that make it a better place. At the Conservancy, we think we are an important player in that, and we look at different ways to make those parklands more attractive, more active, and accessible to all. And one way of doing that is to make it possible for many more people to enjoy those parklands and go there. And today I have a special guest, Julianne Idlet, who is the founder and president of CYCLE Kids, allowing kids to bicycle. And we would love to see a lot of kids bicycling along the Charles River. And before she talks about CYCLE Kids and how the kids come to the river, let me just show you of one of the things that we want people to enjoy, and that is the pathways. There are 20 miles of pathways for running, biking, inline skating, and walking. And some of those pathways resurfaced, about 5 miles of them. The picture on the left shows you the bike path in Allston, Brighton towards Newton that we resurfaced. And we also have this wonderful pathway all along from the harbor up to the Watertown Dam. And this area of the parklands, there are 400,000 people who work within 10 minutes walking distance, 300,000 people. So it's a very densely urban area, and also therefore a wonderful place where people can indeed bicycle. Julie, you came up with the idea of making it easier for kids to bike. How did this idea come to you?
Well, Renata, it was a cold February morning when I was out riding my bike. I used to be a coach for the Harvard cycling team, and I would ride with people that were new to riding and racing. And one morning I was talking to one of the other coaches on a ride, and we were talking about how children had type 2 diabetes and heart disease at a very young age, that they were, seeing more adult diseases in young kids. And that kids were, gaining weight, there was an obesity problem, and there was a lack of exercise. And this other coach said to me, well, kids don't ride bikes like they used to. And that made me think, and it sort of planted the seed for CYCLE Kids, that, in order to get kids out riding, we had to give them the opportunity to get on a bike.
Yeah, well, of course, CYCLE Kids who bicycle could then also go to the river. And yeah. I know you have been also very involved in our advocacy effort to make the bicycling along the river easier by creating underpasses at the bridges, because often kids, they might feel comfortable bicycling along the river, but then when they come to the bridge and to the intersection, they would have to cross this very heavily traveled bridge.
Right, and I think even parents would feel more comfortable if they knew it was there. There were easier options for their children to be able to commute in the city and not have to be engaging in the traffic. But if they had the underpasses and were able to, continue along the loop around the river, it'd be just amazing. It'd be a really wonderful opportunity for the kids.
Yeah.
And give parents a little ease of mind as well.
Yeah. So we will We'll be coming back to this underpass issue. I will be showing some example, but now I would love for you to talk about how you introduce kids to bicycling. Like, we have this picture of the Moore School here.
This is Teresa O'Connor. She's a phys ed teacher at the Moore School, and she's been teaching the CYCLE Kids program at this school for about 5 years now. And it's a curriculum for 4th and 5th grade, and it's about a 6 or 7 class period that it expands, and so it's in physical education class, and we're expanding into literacy class as well, because children enjoy the experience of being on the bikes so much that they're actually reading and writing about it. And we find that the teachers are using our workbooks in the classroom to help the kids. learn the importance of being safe while riding on the road. And so one of the things, the Moore School is very fortunate because they are right on Memorial Drive. And for their classes, what they do is they bring, for the CYCLE Kids class, they bring the kids across to the river. And so they actually ride along the Parklands right by the Moore School, and they practice riding bikes, learning hand signals, what the rules of the road are. And the Cambridge police officers will go in and work with the kids as well to make sure that they're safe getting across the street, but also as a way to mentor and get to know them too.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to imagine that bicycling is not an automatic thing of childhood. I know you grew up bicycling.
Oh God, I know I did, and we both did. But what we found that as we teach the CYCLE Kids program, we ask that there's a pre and post assessment done, so we're learning what the children are gaining from the program. And one of the things we found is that 25% of the children in a CYCLE Kids program either have never been on a bike or don't know how to ride a bike. So they really are learning a new skill, and they're enjoying it. And one of the things that the Moore School principal, Patricia Beggy, did tell us a few years ago was that since CYCLE Kids has been in the school, they've actually had to put more bike racks in. So once kids go through the CYCLE Kid program, parents are feeling confident that the children understand how to ride safely on the roads, and so they're allowing them to go out and ride their bikes to school.
Yeah. So if you want to find out more about CYCLE Kids, or maybe bring cycles to your school or to your kids, that's the website where people can find you. And we will bring that back again later. But of course, if you want to bicycle, you can start in the schoolyard, which I think is a good beginning. But just like when you drive, you can go first to a parking lot, but eventually you want to
get on the road.
You want to be on the road, and you want to do it in a fun place.
Exactly.
So we looked at the Charles River, at the pathways along the river, 20 miles of wonderful pathways, and there are places like the Anderson Bridge, where the double loop is there, where you can go on the Elliott Bridge, where you can go underneath. And but then there are many places where you have to fight the traffic, like at Anderson, Western, and River Street. You really have to fight the traffic, and you can't go under. So we looked at, for instance, the Anderson Bridge, which is now being restored by Mass DOT. How could you go underneath the bridge without fighting the traffic? And because that would make it so much easier if you could just bicycle along the pathway.
It'd make it easier for commuters and make it easier for people out on the weekends, especially where the roads are so conducive to wanting to be out. It's so beautiful for parents and kids to be able to ride together, and it would be a great benefit to the community.
And they're actually quite big numbers. These are counts done by a consultant who worked for Mass DOT, that on a Wednesday, it was in September, at the end of the day, there were 15,000 people, and of those, the blue ones are the bicyclists. So a quarter of those people were bicyclists, and on a weekend, on Saturday, there were 12,000. So these are serious numbers of users of the pathway that could also use the underpasses.
Absolutely. And the kids are looking for places to ride, so if they had that opportunity and parents could feel comfortable that they'd be safe because of the underpasses, it would be you'd see even more use, I promise.
There is already an underpass at the Elliott Bridge that is near the Harvard Stadium. We are here in the winter, and it often does get some water in there, but that doesn't mean an underpass couldn't be designed well, so it actually wouldn't have water, and it would be illuminated. But the number of people who enjoy that underpass is quite wonderful, and that's, imagine you would have to fight the traffic above ground. So we looked at ways of how that could be done at the underpasses, at the bridges that currently exist. And we did this rendering. It was a student, David Smith, from the Graduate School of Design, he came up with this rendering. This is the Anderson Bridge that is going to be renovated by Mass DOT, and he showed of how you could have a path that goes through the abutment of the bridge, so you wouldn't have to fight the traffic. So the more school students could come right to the river, they could bicycle along the river and wouldn't have to fight the traffic at every bridge.
That'd be great, because they could do that even during the school day.
They could do that even during the school day.
Yeah, during their class, their CYCLE Kids class.
Yeah, and the idea is that more people could exercise.
Yeah.
It's not just kids that getting obese, it's the adult population as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And also it would allow people to go to work along the river.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have your CYCLE Kids program, I know you have it in Cambridge. You're
Yep.
a Cambridge resident. You've lived here since '88, but you have plans to take this program nationally.
We do. We have programs now installed in Cambridge and Somerville, and it's actually it's a mandatory part of the 5th grade curriculum in both communities. And we have pilot programs running down in New York City and Harlem, and we're raising funds right now to bring the program to Medford. And we're beginning a national push, so we're working with Specialized to put together a campaign with athletes across the country to offer programs to these athletes for their communities where they grew up as well, because a lot of these athletes came from impoverished communities, and this is an opportunity for them to give back. So we'd be able to give their community a CYCLE Kids program. So there's a lot going on. Yeah.
So that means you in a way showed them the tools of what
Yeah.
you started here in Cambridge, how they can start that in their community.
Exactly. So we would help them implement programs, because what we do is we fundraise and we give the programs to the communities, and then the communities implement the classes in their schools. And so after about a year or two, we do very little support, and it runs by itself in the community. And so what we do is we help get it started. We bring the equipment and the instruction.
And does the equipment mean you bring the bikes as well
Bikes
as the
and
helmets?
Yep, we give bikes and helmets to the community, so that's part of the grant. So it's a CYCLE Kids grant, basically. It's bikes, it's curriculum, it's the helmets, and the communities keep all that, and they teach the program year after year. And we just work with them the first few years to get them up and started. And we've taught. So at this point, we've had over 3,600 children that have been able to call themselves a CYCLE Kid just here in the Boston area.
And you mentioned that you work with the police. What's the role of the police in that?
The police really are mentors in the program. We have them go in and help the children learn how to ride a bike, or ride with them. Like if they're riding along the Charles River, like at the Morse School, they take them on bike rides. They do little pace lines, and they ride with them, and they help them learn
What's
their
a
hand
pace
signals.
line?
A pace line is when you ride one behind each other. So you follow in a line, and it's really important to communicate, to use your hand signals so people know what you're doing. The bike behind you knows where you're going to go, the person behind you, and so cars know. And so the police will work with the children to help them understand, how to use their hand signals, also why it's important to wear a helmet and how to wear it correctly. And then they develop this one-on-one relationship. So there's a lot of mentoring that comes out of the program as well. I've heard stories how, some of the police officers will be in the community walking through the streets, and a child will see them, and they'll come up to them and they'll say, I want you to meet my family, and they'll introduce them to their parents. And for a lot of these officers, it's the first time they've actually been able to reach into the families and meet some of the families. So it's been a program that, which has been my goal with implementing it, is to help bring communities together.
It's wonderful because you came from a marketing and business development background in the software industry, and now you can use these skills for community building. And
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something that I